Well, hello and welcome. And I've got a question for you, and that is, have you ever really wanted to play the guitar, maybe taken some lessons or tried on YouTube, or maybe even bought a course and had limited results, or none at all maybe? Well, let me tell you, today is your lucky day. And I'll tell you why. I'm so positive that my approach to teaching how to play the guitar works that I'm willing to kickstart you for free. And if you follow through these 4 lessons, starting from the first one, this is the first one, there's 3 more, and you don't cheat, you don't take any shortcuts, you will be able to make music from your guitar sooner than you could imagine. And it's all for free, today only. All right, so the first thing I'd like to talk about is 3 really important chords in the key of D major. Now, one thing you should know is that if you're a beginner, is that each key has at least 3 primary chords, 3 important chords, 3 chords that work together really well, that sound good together, that you need to know. Now, I've got other lessons that I'm going to do in other keys, but the key we're going to start with today is the key of D. Everybody starts with the key of G. There's lots of lessons out there in the key of G, but let's do the key of D. It's a very cool key, and it's used a lot. And there's going to be at least 3 songs. If you follow through this, there'll be at least 3 songs that you'll be able to play like a pro by the time you get to my 4th lesson, okay? So, the 3 chords for the key of D are D, G, and A. I'm not going to pick bar chords. I'm going to pick basic, common, standard, open chords. D, G, and A. And I'm going to go through the fingering right now. There's 1 minor chord that I'm going to touch on at the end, because you're going to need that too. But let's start with these 3 major chords. So the D chord's a good one to start with because it's not like super difficult compared to some of the others, like the G chord has more reach. The A chord sometimes students can struggle with. But the D chord is a really nice sounding chord, and it uses the bottom 4 strings. 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. For those of you that are total newbies and don't even know the string numbers on your guitar, it's 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Thickest string is the biggest number. Thinnest string is the smallest number. And so, for the D chord, and also for your information, on your left hand, if you're a beginner and you're not sure, your left hand, that's your fretting hand, because you're fretting on the fretboard of your guitar, right? That's how you create the sounds on your guitar, by pressing down on the strings, right? So, you got the 1st finger, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And you're going to start with your 1st finger, and you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 3rd string, 1st finger, 2nd fret. Your frets are these metal pieces that run across the fretboard, okay? And when you count, 1st fret would be here, 2nd fret would be here, 3rd fret, 4th fret. So it goes up as you go up, right? The numbers go up, 1st fret, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. And you have position markers depending on your guitar and how it was designed. Usually you have position markers like at the 3rd fret. See, on my guitar, there's kind of like a crown inlay, you know. And on yours, there might be a dot or a black dot or maybe something more ornate, I don't know. But usually it's 3rd fret, 5th fret, 7th, 9th, and then 12th. And the position markers are just there to help you kind of get your positioning where you are fret-wise on the guitar, especially as you move up the fretboard. So it's nothing that you should be super, super concerned about, but I just thought I'd drop that in there since I'm assuming you're a total beginner. So your 1st finger is going to use the 3rd string, so the 3rd string is the 3rd one up, so thinnest, a little thicker. The 3rd string is the 3rd thickest string, and that'll be my 1st finger. Now when you fret, one of the things you should, and this is a rule for all chords that you're learning to play, you should try and arc your finger over and use the fingertip more. And one of the reasons for that is so that you don't catch with the fleshy edge of your finger the next string down. Because a lot of times when you're playing chords, not all the time, it depends on the finger pattern you're using, but you're going to have a situation where you need a string to ring out underneath your fretted string, and you're going to struggle with it, and you, as a beginner, you probably wouldn't realize this at first, but the meat, the flesh underneath your finger can cause the string to be muted out, and no matter how hard you try to press the string, you're not going to get a clear chord. The other word of advice is my thumb is always fairly centered. Now, it doesn't have to be flat against the back of the neck, because mine isn't when I actually fret. If you see with this D chord, my thumb's actually on a bit of, you'll see this, it's not totally flat. It's got maybe a 35 degree to it or something. Everybody's hand is shaped a little different. Don't worry about that too much. The idea is to get a nice even arc with your fingers like I've got here. And again, depending on the size of your hand and the width of the neck of your guitar and the thickness of your guitar will all affect the way your hand looks. So you don't have to copy me exactly. What you have to do is find a comfortable spot where you're fretting these chords, and you're always going to press behind the fret. So if I say that's the first fret, that's the second fret, that's the third fret, and I say put your first finger on the second fret, third string, then it's 1, 2, 3, 3 strings, and 1, 2, second fret up on that third string. That's where your first finger is going to go. Now the bad finger, your second finger, is going to go on the first string, so the highest string. Same fret as your first finger on the third string. Second fret, that is, right? So second finger, first string, second fret, and finally our third finger right here is going to go on the second string, third fret. And now we use 4 strings. We use an open D string. Remember, our guitar is tuned E, A, D, G, B, and E. The open strings are E, A, D, G, B, and E. This is some standard tuning. Okay? So you're going to use the open D string, then your fretted third, second, and first, and that's your D chord. Now, I've had this question asked to me quite a few times. I've seen people playing the D chord like this, where they've reversed their fingers. Where they've got their first finger down on the first string instead of on the third string. There is no real right or wrong way to finger a chord. Whatever works for you the best is what you need to do. I've even barred this chord, and used a bar, like a one-finger bar with it. That works too. But this is the most common finger patterns. And you'll notice I've got a big hand, right? And I got a narrow neck guitar, a thin neck, and I'm wrapping my thumb around. Don't let anybody tell you that wrapping your thumb around is a bad thing. It isn't. It just depends on the size of your hand. If you've got really small hands, the chance of you using your thumb and playing is going to be a lot less than a guy like me that has big hands. That doesn't mean you can't play. It just means you have to adjust your technique. Now this applies to all the chords, so that's why I'm taking a little bit of time on this D chord, because I'm going to burn through the other chords a little faster. All right, so this is what your D chord is supposed to sound like. How do you practice it? Well, I suggest you just pick through all the strings that belong in that chord. You're going to leave the 6th string and the 5th string out. When you actually start strumming the chord, if you hit the 6th and 5th string, it doesn't sound very good because those low bass strings take away from the sound of the chord. So one thing you can practice is getting into the habit of starting on your first or the lowest note, should I say, in your chord, which is the 4th string for a D, right? And you just start dragging your pick across just like you're raking it and trying to hit all the strings evenly. And like I said, you can pick each string out individually so you get them all nice and clear. And you want to adjust your hands so you can do that, right? Move your thumb a bit if you need to, back and forth, a little this way, a little that. Try and keep some distance between the bottom of your fretboard and your neck and your hand. Grabbing it like a baseball club is going to make it much more difficult, especially if you're a beginner. You're better off to move your wrist back like you see me doing right now. And your fingers don't have to be perfectly in the center of the fretboard, as long as they're behind the fret. You're good. You notice my first finger is further away from the fret. My second finger is closer to that fret, like much closer. It almost looks like it's on the fret. It's not. It's behind it. And my third finger is a little further back, and that's to compensate for the size of my hand and the fretboard. So that's all okay. What you're really concerned about is getting each string in that chord clear. And once you get that, just practice strumming the chord down and up, a simple down up. Try and keep it steady. The next chord you need is a G chord. Now I have several different forms of G chord that I like. The most common is this one here. That's your first finger on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th string, right? 2nd fret, 1, 2, 2nd fret. Your second finger, which is my bad finger, on the 6th string, 3rd fret, 1, 2, 3, 3rd fret. So you have that going on. Now you have to skip the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd, and go down to the 1st, which is where this technique of your hands staying clear of the bottom of the fretboard and the neck of your guitar will really help. Now you don't want to overdo it so that your fingers are kinking, because you want a nice arc here on your fingers. You want that first joint in your finger to kind of have that part of your finger should be pointed like as straight down as possible. It's not perfectly straight down, but you want your fingertips to come down fairly straight. And so that 3rd finger goes on the 1st string, 3rd fret. And now you have to pick through. And here's where an issue comes in usually on this chord with the 1st finger, which is on the 5th string. And if you lean it over too much, like if you lean back too much, this is what will happen. Your D string, or your 4th string that should be ringing out, is muted. And it's not muted because I've got my finger on top of the string. It's muted because the bottom edge of my finger is tilted far enough back to touch the string, and it's killing it, right? So no matter how much you press down, you're not going to get it. You've got to readjust your wrist a bit. And you want to get that clear. This one, as a beginner, you'll probably find that more difficult. But you need to work on that. And you'll see where my thumb is. My thumb is always kind of centered with the hand position. What I mean by centered is not necessarily centered with the neck itself, but centered with my hand position in the front. And then pick through your chord. When you get it nice and clear, on this chord we use all 6 strings. And one more little bonus for you. I really like this G major chord, and you'll catch me going back and forth all the time. And that's where I use my pinky. So my 3rd finger on the standard G that I just showed you was on the 1st string, 3rd fret. But now I'm going to take that and move it over to the 2nd string, 3rd fret, and then drop my pinky down where the 3rd finger used to be. This is still a G major. It's just what they call another voicing of G major. Nice sounding chord. Like I said, once you get the chord happening, you need to strum it. Treat your pick like you're brushing it with the pick. Don't hold it really stiff, and you don't have to point it at a 90 degree to your strings at all. You can let the pick just brush across. My pick points up when I'm strumming down. My pick points down when I'm strumming up, right? So I'm not really just pointed directly down at the string at a 90 degree angle. And that's kind of up to you. You kind of have to feel, because I'm not holding my pick super tight or anything. Just enough to hold the pick in place. Now we got one more chord. It's an A chord. This is one that some students have a bit of a problem with. And it depends on the fingering. And yes, I've seen other fingering. You can choose whatever. If you already know this chord and it's just kind of a review, that's okay too. You can finger it other ways. There's a whole bunch of reasons why I would choose different fingerings. I can't get into that today. I'm going to use my 1st finger on the 4th string, 2nd fret. My 2nd finger on the 3rd string, 2nd fret. And my 3rd finger on the 3rd, or should I say the 2nd string, 2nd fret. And that's our A major. And we use 5 strings. The open 5th and the open 1st string are also included in on that chord. Now this chord, again, can be hard, especially if you've got like a little bit wider fingers like I do, and you're trying to avoid muting out that bottom string, right? You don't want to kill that bottom string. So that has a lot to do with where your wrist is. But don't fight it. You should never have to press super, super hard on your guitar to get the chord clear. It's more about where the fingers are positioned fret-wise. You know, like with this one, because of the fingering I chose, my first finger is further back from the fret I'm using, which is always the fret in front of my finger, not the one behind, right? My second finger is in the middle, and my third finger is really close to the fret. That's okay, as long as you get, as long as you get the chord nice and clear. Okay, so those are your three basic majors. And they sound great together in any order. And there's hundreds of songs that use it, and we're going to get to that in the next lesson. One more chord you need. It's a B minor. And this chord can be really difficult. Some people really struggle with this. I'm going to show you three different ways to play it. First way is the easiest way, but it's limited. It's only 3 strings, okay? You're going to use your first finger on the 2nd fret, 1st string. You're going to use your second finger on the 3rd fret, 2nd string, and your third finger on the 3rd string, 4th fret. Just like that. Again, it's going to really help if you center your thumb, okay? Now, there is another way to play the B minor. You can add one more bass note, still avoiding the bar if you struggle with a bar. And now you can take the basic form I just showed you and move your third finger over to the 4th string, and that'd be 4th fret, 4th string. And then take your pinky and tuck it underneath on the 3rd string. And that gives you another form of B minor. It's a little richer because now you have 4 strings. The one I prefer to use is the bar chord, which is the same pattern that we just have here right now, except that I use my first finger to bar 5 strings. And there is a trick to the bar, and I could do a lesson just on that. But I'm going to shortcut it a bit and tell you that the bar doesn't have to be flat. Like I see a lot of beginners, and the first thing they do is they try to reach, and they practice the bar, right? And they're trying to get all the strings clear with the bar. But the fact of the matter is that really the only strings you need to catch with this bar, and the reason why you're using the bar is because you need the 5th string and the 1st string need to be depressed with the bar. The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th finger are taking care of the middle strings. So really the ones you have to be concerned about with the bar are the 5th string and the 1st string, because as long as you got 2nd, 3rd, and 4th finger in the right place, you should be able to get a fairly clear bar chord. Now the reason for a bar chord is it's movable. But there's nothing wrong with using this 3-note chord or the 4-note one instead. And now again, my advice is with every key that we have, which is a family of harmonies, or family of chords, or family of notes that sound good together. So for every key, we have 3 major chords, and in this key, the key of D, we have D, G, and A, and we have a minor that's relative to it. And this happens to be the B minor for this key. So just keep that in mind, that this belongs in the family of the key of D, even though it's a minor chord, and they all sound great together. And you can practice, you know, if you're not ready to go to the next lesson and you need to work on these chords a little more, that's cool. You know, what you want to do is get familiar with the chords and see how they feel changing them and get them nice and clear. If you find this lesson informative, interesting, you might want to check out riffninja.com and check out riffninja.com/beginners. And we'll see you in the next lesson.